Oh, yeah. We got the pod today. We got my man, Brian Hendricks, in the house. And look, I'm going to jump right in with this one for the first time ever. Put your hands together for Brian Hendricks, best-selling author. Brian, what's going on, brother?
Sounds really nice. I like how you say that. I might have to just get a recording of this and just replay it every day for my morning affirmations.
Yeah, right? No,
Yeah.
it's awesome. But what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for a lot of stuff, but thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about the book, talk about the process. It's been kind of a whirlwind since September 6th when the book launched. So
Awesome.
I appreciate
Awesome,
it.
dude. Yeah, look, I got your book right here in my hand.
Love
For
it.
those of you that are
Love
just
it.
listening to this, The Communicator's Playbook. Learn how to lead effectively, create productive relationships, and develop a dynamic organization. Man, that is right there. So I want to start right here with the book. All right. What made you decide to write a book? And what made you decide to get some help while you write the book?
Yeah. So the idea of the Communicator's Playbook has actually been I like to call it in the hopper for many, many years. It started with my dad. So my dad started the company that I now currently run, Dynamic Developments, back in 1996. And he always wanted to write a book. And I remember growing up, he always talked about writing a book, and he never wrote a book. So when I took over in January of 2023, one of my things was, well, all the stuff that we teach about leadership, about communication, about interpersonal communication, more specifically, it lends itself for what you and I have talked about is an airplane read. It's something that you can pick up quickly, get some tips, some tricks on how to be a better communicator and start using it right away, which to me is always the most important thing is if you're going to read a book, if you're going to take a workshop, you got to get those practical tools. And in the book, I call them the dynamic tools. It's the stuff that you can actually put into practice right away. So, January 2023 hits and I start thinking, hey, what's a way to market myself? What's a way to start marketing this company better and getting the word out of what we do for people in kind of a condensed form so they can learn how to be better communicators, at work, at home, wherever they're doing it. And I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason. You actually came on my podcast, the 6 Degrees of Leadership, and we started talking about your leadership background. We started talking about writing books, and it was one of those things where I said, okay, I'm going to write a book at some point in time. At some point in time, and after the conversation, I remember you said, "Why aren't you writing it now?" And I was kind of like, I got nothing. Like I had no reason not to write it now. So you and I had a bunch of conversations. I was going to try and come out to your very first Big Idea to Bestseller live. Um, Fortunately, the basketball team that I coached wound up winning a regional championship, which we weren't supposed to do. So I had to miss it. But stayed in contact with you. And then I think one of the things that I knew about myself is it wasn't if I could write a book. I knew I could all the time. It was more the accountability piece. It was more of, hey, if I invest into a coach, if I invest into a program, this book is going to get done in the specified amount of time because I put that financial investment in. I now have someone that is holding me accountable on a weekly basis. So for me, it really wasn't do I have the ability to do it or not? It was, I needed that extra accountability. And then, fast forward 6 months later, here I am with a best-selling book in 4 different categories on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. Dude. Let's just clip that up and call it a day. That's fantastic. But here's what's really cool, right? And it's also awesome to see how you communicate, right? Just kind of how you talk, how you tell the story, and different things. That's part of what you do. But here's what I noticed, talking about this is you never had a doubt of could you. It was
Right.
more about when was the right time and where do you get the right support and accountability. But what I heard more than anything was that this is something that's bigger than a book for you, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
coming into it, not just like you ultimately wanted to write a book and you've wanted to do it forever per se, but it was your dad wanted to write the book and you said, all right, I'm going to do it. It was, I'm stepping into a new company and what's the best marketing tool that I can do that will be done quickest and most efficiently, right? And so there's always something I want to point out there and listen, there's always a reason for whatever it is that gets someone to make the plunge to write the book, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
always bigger than the book itself, right?
Absolutely.
And so talk to me about this. We'll talk about the process a little bit, but your book's The Communicator's Playbook. All right. And you mentioned that your business is dynamic developments, and you mentioned that you talk about the dynamic tools. So how did you decide to tie in the dynamic tools with your business versus per se creating that as part of your title?
Yeah. To me, it was a seamless transition. I mean, it just was one of the things that made sense. When you ever sign up for one of our workshops, or if you do one-on-one coaching with me, the very first thing I say to you is, if you're not getting practical things out of the workshop or out of this coaching session, stop paying me. Like, if you're not going to be doing the things that I'm suggesting, stop. Like, it's not going to be a good working relationship, because I can't tell you how many times I've gone through professional development, whether it's, former life as an educator, as, working organizational development now as a head basketball coach, where you leave that 1 day session and you're all amped and jacked up. And then you go, well, what's next? Like, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot of those speakers out there that get you excited. They talk about theory. Hey, you need to communicate better with your team. Yeah, I do. You're right. How? Like, what's that how that so many people miss? So for me, I tell people, if you take a workshop, if you coach with us, you're going to get practical things. So for the book, it was, well, if you buy my book, you're going to get practical things. And in the book, I call them dynamic tools. It's straight up kind of a branding thing. We're called dynamic developments. Our main workshop is dynamic leadership. And to me, that word dynamic, it's synonymous with my favorite word of communicator and leader. And it's all in the book. You'll see it a ton, is versatile. It's all about versatility. So, when we're a leader and we're communicating to other people, it's not about them trying to adjust their style to us. It's all about, how do we adjust our style to everybody else? And in the book, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to lay out, everything that we can, that we offer in the workshop, give people glimpses and, little stories from my life. I think that's what's cool, is I have stories in there of times that I've successfully communicated and times that I've blatantly failed communicated, and how using different dynamic tools, which is something like breathing techniques, different things with, hey, how do you actually reflect after communication so you can do better? Different ways to read body language. Those are all things that I've learned after years and years of going to school, of really my dad teaching me this and getting practical practice. The dynamic tools, that was just an easy part where I can say, hey, not just buy this book for 99 cents, for ebook, or $15. You're going to get real things that you can use immediately right away in
Mm-hmm.
the book.
Yeah, and here's what I like about this is you did a great job of tying what you do on the back end with the book by having the dynamic tools, right? Dynamic tools was great because it is a branding play, but also that word is powerful, right? And so you've set the intention to make powerful tools, powerful opportunities that then leads, if they do those things, they'll be more likely to want the dynamic leadership. They'll want the workshop. They'll want to work with you, right? And so that's a really, really great way to connect your book to your business, something that I thought you did great. The other thing that I really like what you did now, I'm a sucker for basketball. I'm a sucker for sports. But something that I also really liked that what you did is you have a passion and a background of being an educator, of being a head coach. And so you made your title the Playbook. You added the playbook in there. Okay. And what you've done by doing this is you've been able to combine your personality with your objectivity, right? Which is the truth around what it is. So I really do like that. And how you were able to have these little things that, to maybe first glance, people might not notice, but to you, and as you build your brand and as you build, the business to the next level, these are all really, really valuable things here. So I just wanted to say, I really enjoy that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So you mentioned, you go to these self-help things, you do the personal development, and you get fired up. You're motivated. I'm that way too. I'm like, woo, I'm on top of the world. But then you're like, well, what the heck am I actually supposed to do? Right?
Exactly.
So that's what this book is, right? So it's the dynamic tools to doing all that. Talk to me about, how do we become a better communicator? Talk to me about, how do we become a better leader? What are some of those practical tools that we can use after listening to this interview?
Yeah. So I'll give three that kind of is the overarching theme of the book itself, and it's a process that we call the RQ process, which stands for regroup, reorganize, and redeliver. So it starts with regrouping, and what are we regrouping? We have to regroup our thoughts, because our thoughts lead to how we feel, our emotions, which then lead to our words, our tone, and our body language, which we'll get to in a second. So one of the best tools I talk about is something I call 4-2-4 breathing. It's really simple. you know that feeling like when you start getting anxious or nervous or like, oh, this isn't going the way I want it to, or it's like, oh my gosh, I have to talk with Jake again, right? We all have that. So instead of just going into that meeting or continuing that conversation, take what I call a 4-2-4 breath. And it's real simple. It's in through the nose for the count of 4, hold it for the count of 2, and then breathe out through your mouth for the count of 4. And it's this really simple thing that you can do as you're talking or as you're listening. But what it does, it slows your heart rate down and helps you start thinking about, okay, if I say exactly what I want to say, what is this going to do? I can't tell you how many times that has worked from a business standpoint. I teach my little kids this. I've avoided so many arguments with my wife by just, you know what, Jackie, hold on one second. Like, let me take a deep breath real quick. Okay, here's what I'm actually trying to say, not what the anger, the emotion is telling me. So that's the first, that's part of it, is take those 4-2-4 breaths, take those deep breathing moments before you go to a presentation, in the middle of a conversation, whatever you need to do. So that's how we can regroup our thoughts. The second part we talk about is reorganize. And we have to reorganize our words, our tone, and our body language. I'm sure you've heard this, but over 90% of what we in communication has nothing to do with the words we say. People remember 7% of words, 38% of our tone, and 55% of our body language. Now, for so many people, they're going into a meeting, they're going into another conversation, and they don't want to be there. What's their body language going to do? It's going to drop. Shoulder's going to be dropped. They're not going to be confident. And then that's going to be how they communicate out. So one of the things I talk about there is the ACE method. It comes from Jake Arrieta, former Chicago Cubs Cy Young pitcher. And it's acting changes everything. Look, you go into a conversation, act confident. Get big is one of my favorite things that I teach clients. And in the book, it talks about the different science behind getting big, the science behind body posture that actually creates confidence in yourself. So if you're acting confident, you start feeling confident. Now you're able to communicate more confidently, and that person's going to believe what you're saying. That person's going to have trust, and you are now an authority figure. And that last piece of the R cube is redeliver, and that's where we talk about redelivering our message. And in the book, talk about 2 different ways to redeliver your message. First and foremost, we have to redeliver it versatily. So kind of like what you and I talked about earlier is I have to adapt my preferred communication style to yours. Do I need to raise the energy up? Do I need to bring my energy down? Do I need to slow down and give you time to process? Or is it, Jake, here's what we want, let's go, and boom, we're good to go? All that has to change. The other piece is I have to know what your knowledge level of this communication or this thing we're talking about is. Because if you are, a performance level 4, you're a top learner, I can pass through some things. I can fly through it. If you're brand new starting it, guess what? That communication should be different. And I work with CEOs and human resources, and I always hear all the time, that was because of leadership. What they're really saying is people are leaving because leaders aren't communicating with them in the way that they want to be / need to be communicated with.
Frick, man. So many nuggets there, dude. I'm just
sorry, that's a lot.
We got that. Like, get the book, everybody. The Communicator's Playbook. Just grab yourself a copy of this thing. But look, here's what's really, really awesome about this is you were able to use a lot of the material that you have learned your entire life. You were able to use a lot of the material that you already teach on, that you already get paid to do, that you're already selling, and put that material into a book. So now somebody can listen to this podcast. They can dig deeper into it by reading the book. And then they'll be like, okay, this is exactly what my organization needs. Boom. Right. Yep. And that's such an amazing thing, which leads me to this, Brian, which is like, you started in March, your book was a bestseller by the beginning of September, right? That is a very, very short time frame. I want to walk through some of these key milestones to show people what's possible. All right. How long did it take you to write your rough draft?
I was done with the rough draft. If I remember, it was about 40 days because I had the full outline. So I was started at the end of March, and by the second week of May, so I think it was like 6 weeks total, was done with the rough draft. Then obviously go through it, read it out loud. And then I think the most nerve-wracking part was by June, early June, it was off to the editor. Like I was more or less done writing. Yeah. And then it's into this other person's hand. And it's So, that happened June into July because, you get your feedback, you have to adjust. A lot of what, for me is everything I do is based in science and research. So I have footnotes galore in there because I don't want to just say something and say, oh, it works. Like, no, what I'm teaching works. And here's the data, here's the science
Yeah.
behind it. So, I think that was one of the, I would say probably the tedious parts was making sure I'm checking all my sources and citing all the sources the right way. So you want to go see where I cite, boom, you can actually go back and check that directly. But I'd say to your original question, the outline portion took me maybe a week and a half, 10 days. And then it was sit down and write. And I think one of the things that your program suggests, you suggest, I've suggested it to clients in other ways. And then hearing you say to do it helped, was put it in your calendar. So I knew from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock every day where I didn't have a workshop, where I didn't have a client or a coaching session, whatever it might be, I'm writing. And if a client has to meet at 9 to 10, well, the very first thing I did after schedule it was move that 9 to 10 a.m. to maybe 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Because once it's in my calendar, it's there. Like it's another meeting, it's another thing, it's something that has to happen. So that was a huge piece to keep me on track to, finishing a rough draft in 6 weeks is incredible.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And that includes your outline process too, right? Like that included your outline process. So when you think about it, right, let's just break this down because I want everyone to know like this is so possible. You start middle of March. By the end of May, within 6 weeks, you have your book completely outlined and your rough draft completely done. By the beginning of September, your book's in your hand. That's 5.5 months. Like that's insane. Like that's so incredible. And the coolest part about it is it's a good book. It's not something, and you're listening to Brian talk right now. If you're listening to this, like he knows his stuff, and that's what's really cool. So talk to me a little bit more about, how do you envision, or how have you already, since the book came out, used the book to build your confidence or to build your business? What are some of the things that you've already noticed happening, and what are some of the things that you are looking to do with it?
I think one of the things that I've seen already is it automatically makes me an expert in the field. And it's from people that have known me already or people that are just learning about me. When you tell them, hey, I have a best-selling book or I wrote a book in this field, boom, you're automatically, jump a couple levels from everybody else.
And real quick, are you, when you say that, right? Because it's easy to say that. And because our whole theme for you right now is like, how, right? Like, show us. So I want to know, like, when you're saying, oh, you're seen differently, like, are people coming up to you and being like, oh, I need to know about communication. I know you wrote the book on it. Are people saying, hey, how do I lead my organization better? Like, what are some of those things that are actually happening that help support that so that people can see, oh, you know what? If I write my book on this topic, I will be even more of an expert.
Great story actually just happened last week. So
Okay.
I was meeting with a potential client. They are a manufacturer, warehouse, distribution, like they do everything. So I'm meeting with them. We have a great meeting, meet with the team. Everything's going well. And, I've been in those meetings before and it's still 50-50. You can leave those meetings feeling great. And it's like, oh, well, definitely getting them. And then you never get the client versus, oh man, that was rough. And then all of a sudden you get the client. So you never know when you're done, but we're in the meeting and we're kind of wrapping up. And somehow the topic of books that we've read have come up. And just so happens they read a John Gordon book that I love. I was like, actually, the book I just wrote on communication just went #1. And said, oh, tell me about it. I said, well, it's all about leadership and communicating in the workplace. It actually went #1 in manufacturing and warehouse leadership. I'm with a manufacturing and warehousing company at this point. And you could, the humorous person just lit up. Really? It was #1 in those two categories. I said, yes, actually, we've worked, which then led to, I've worked with warehouses forever. Manufacturing has been a big part of who we are as a company. And now all of a sudden the conversation's rolling. She's like, well, what are some of the things that are in the book that you also teach? I'm like, everything. Now we're going to go really in depth to it into what your specific needs are. We can customize it. So that's one of the things you bring it out. And all of a sudden you just see this shift where it's like, oh, this is different. Like, this is not just a normal consultant coming in to talk to me. This is an expert in his field. And here's the proof. He has a #1 best-selling book. So that I would say on a personal level, people, are kind of starting to read it now, that are just getting it. And they're kind of like, what did you mean by this in the book? Or that's really interesting. I've had a couple friends reach out. They'd be like, all right, I'm giving this to my bosses. Hopefully it'll turn into something for you. So it's one of those things where now, it's the word of mouth of people buying it and passing it on to their decision makers. It's getting in front of different decision makers where not only are they buying the book, now they're buying a workshop. And then once you buy a workshop, hopefully you buy coaching. And there's your 3 different levels that you try and hit on.
Dude, this is so good. This is so good. Are you noticing, like, before I wrote different books, people like saw me as the way I portrayed myself, right? And I saw myself a certain way. But the minute the book came out, like, people just see it differently. People just are like, oh, you know what? I know that you speak, but now I really know that you speak, right? Like I remember that. I was like, yeah, I'm a motivational speaker. I'd already had a book at the time, but I was making some change. I'm like, oh yeah, I have this. And then I go, oh, and I have the book on this. And then they were like, oh, I get it now. You're not just like trying to be a speaker, like you are a speaker. Like, have you noticed that?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it too, it was, oh, you're taking over your dad's company, to this is you. Like, you did this. It's that, I even noticed with my closest friends, they've always kind of danced around what I've done, because unless you've had professional development, unless you're in organizational development, you're getting it. You just don't know what it's called.
Right.
And a lot of them are like, oh, you actually do this. It was one of those, like, you actually are a really good communicator. You really do help people figure out how to interact in the workplace. I'm like, I wasn't lying for the last couple of years, guys. Like, this is not new, but yes, I actually do all of this stuff now.
But that's what's so incredible is the book shifts that perspective, right? People may have an idea, people may know, but people may not fully understand. The minute you put the book out on the topic that you are the expert on, now people have no choice but to turn their heads and pay attention. But here's where this gets really great, and you've mentioned this a few times. It's, excuse me, it's not just, oh my gosh, you wrote the book. It's you're having friends that have been close to you, but who have never worked in the industries that you've worked, or have never promoted you to their companies. Now they're becoming your army. They're starting to, hey, I gave this to my boss. Hey, I gave this to my boss. And now people who want to support you have a real way to support you. And that is a really powerful, powerful thing.
Well, I think, going on that too, it's really hard for someone who's not, in that director of HR role, who's the CEO, who's the CFO, the CEO, who those final decision makers that want to bring someone like me in. It's really hard for someone who's not me to go, oh, well, I have a friend and they're really good at teaching people how to communicate. Well, that means 1,000 different things. Hey, I want to be a better leader. Well, in what ways? There's 100 million things that go into leadership.
Yep.
Here, take this book. And I've had people tell me it's anywhere between, depending on how fast you read, 30 minutes to 2 hours. Like, you can fly through it if you're fast. I mean, you got to be fast to get through it in 30 minutes, but it's an airplane read. It's something that you can get through, pick up, learn something. If you're flying from Milwaukee to LA, you can finish that book on a leg and you get done. I want to call this. So that's what you were talking about when you said he's just, communication expert. We need this in our company. We need this in our organization. That's kind of the whole hope of how this gets to that next level.
Dude, so good. So look, we've talked about our cube process. We've talked about the 4-2-4. We've talked about the body language and the breakdown of percentages. What's one thing that if someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to be a better leader today, what's one thing that they can do besides getting your book, right? They'll have the links below. But what's one thing that they can absolutely do to improve their communication as a leader?
Oh, man. Have you ever heard of the platinum rule or the golden rule? Everyone's heard of the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated, right? And it's in every major faith out there. It works great in faith. It works terribly in communication. So I believe in something called the platinum rule. Communicate with others the way they want to be communicated with. And that it's almost like a mirroring. So I know with you, Jake, you're this expressive guy. You talk with your hands, you bring the energy, you bring the excitement. When you and I are having a conversation, I have to amp my energy up. I have to make sure I'm using my hands. I'm getting you excited to talk to me.
Yep.
If I go with this same energy and go to, my younger brother, the response is going to be chill out. So I know, okay, that's not what my brother needs, who used to be a trainer for us. When I talk with him, I have to slow down. And the very first thing I have to do is I have to say, hey, how you doing today? What's going on with you? How's life? How's the wedding planning? And after 5 minutes of small talk, boom, let's go. Then we get into it. Dealing with somebody else who doesn't want small talk, I have to know that and be, all right, I'll talk to you about the weekend. As soon as we're done planning out our tasks for the day, then we can get into the weekend, then we can talk about it. But the biggest thing that where leaders, I've seen this time and time again, where leaders struggle is I'm the leader, people need to adapt to me, which is absolutely unequivocally false. We need to adapt to every single person who comes into our door. And we have to realize when we have to change, what we have to adjust, because perception becomes reality. I might think I'm the nicest person in the world, and my entire team might be like, that guy's a jerk. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
So intent doesn't matter in communication. As much as we love it to, we have to be versatile to make sure we're helping others perceive us the way that we want them to.
I love it. I got to ask a follow-up question to that, because that is something like that's worth a re-listen here, folks. But let's dig into this one time. And it's this, because as you're saying, it's like you got to, as a leader, you also got to be you, right? So
100%.
you got to be you. So how do you still be you, represent yourself and not change you, but still adapt to others? How do we do that? Because I could already hear people saying, all right, yeah, I get it. But like, do you want me, am I a chameleon? Do I just constantly do what everyone else wants me to do? And that's exhausting for me. How do I stay me, but also make sure that I'm communicating the way people want to be communicated with?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's such a big question. That's such a misconception. Is, oh, I have to be a chameleon. I have to change who I am. Absolutely not. You have to be true to who you are, but you have to make slight adjustments. So I'm what's known as an expressive. I talk with my hands. I think you and I are similar in that. I can come up with 1,000 creative ideas. Then for me, it's the follow through. It's the details where I know I've struggled in the past. So let's say I'm talking to that detail person. First of all, I can't come in all, yeah, what about this idea? What about this idea? What about this idea? And go crazy with it. I can still come in with excitement because it's a new, cool idea. I'm excited about it, but I'm just going to tone the excitement down maybe one notch. Hey, I have this great idea. Before I tell you about it, let me tell you how we're going to get there. And now I'm connecting with that person on the details, because that's what's important to them. But at the end of the day, I'm relaying my idea, this creative solution, this change that the company is forcing us. But here's why it's going to be a great idea. And it's so exciting. Detail, process. So when I say make adjustments, we're not adjusting who we are. We're adjusting how we're communicating out what's important to us.
Dude, I love that. Taking my notes right here. So look, this has been freaking special. All right. I love what the book is. I love the way you've brought it to tie into the business. You know, I'll use one of your words, is your book has become a versatile asset for yourself, your business, your credibility, your authority, and speaking engagements and everything that's to come. How do we as an audience, how do we get your book? How do we continue to learn from you, work with you? Tell us where to go. Give us all the goods.
Yeah, absolutely. So book is available on Amazon right now. If you're an ebook person, you can get it for 99 cents. It's $15 for the paperback copy. So go get it on Amazon. If you want to connect with me, a bunch of different ways. So our website is www.dynamicdevelopments. There's an S at the end, .net. There's a contact us page there. Shoot me an email, Brian Hendricks @dynamicdevelopments.net. And then Instagram is going to be a great way. I have a kind of my work Instagram, which is all this good stuff that you'll see. And that's just Develop with Brian, and it's BRIAN. And send me a DM and then we'll talk. We'll figure it out. But that's one of the things I want to be as accessible as possible to people. Because again, going back to the professional development that I've had, you know, those speakers like, hey, it was great to meet everybody. Follow me on Twitter. And that's it. It's like, no, you have my email. There's a website. You have DM me, whatever it is, and I will actually respond. I want to help. That is the big thing. I want to be there for you, for your organization, for whatever it is.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it, man. It's been awesome watching you through this journey. You know, I
Thank you.
remember us talking about it and you're like, dude, I'm coming to the live event. Actually, no, I'm not coming to the live event. Like we won. And we were like, yes, no, yeah. We were all these all emotions. And then you were like, you know what, but let's do it. Let's do it. I'm taking a chance. Let's make it happen. Here we are, 6 months later, now the time of recording later than that. You're a best-selling author, multiple categories. You're using the book to close deals. People are seeing you differently. It's freaking awesome, man. And so I just want to say congratulations on the success. Congratulations on
Thank you.
Doing the damn thing. And I can't wait to see where it takes you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for all the help, for the encouragement. I mean, that's one of, if you're thinking about joining the program or not, that accountability piece, I can't speak to it enough, whether it's the group calls, the freaking out on launch day and you're responding on Instagram, whatever it is, like it was such a great program and it helped me get to where I am. And if I could just, everybody listening, the best piece of advice I can give you about writing a book or just about doing anything, it's the start that stops most people. So just do it. Just if you want to, just do it, because it's worth it at the end. And that goes for a book, that goes for life, that goes for anything. But think about it. It's the start that stops most people. So get started and you'll really be impressed at what you can actually truly accomplish.
Dude, I love it. And to wrap it up, man, you pretty much just finished off with a bang here. But for everybody that's listening, head over to Amazon, grab your copy of the Communicator's Playbook, head over to Instagram, head over to Brian's website. But look, it's very simple, all right? If you want to be a better communicator, grab Brian's book. If you want to be a better leader, grab Brian's book. This stuff is real stuff by a real dude who has a family, who wants to help, and who works with great organizations. So I encourage you to take what Brian said here and get started on what is that next thing you can do. What is that person? Who is that person that you need to be able to provide for your family, to be able to provide for your organization, right? Think about those things. Enjoy this, re-listen to it a few times, and have a great damn day. All right, there you have it. Another wonderful episode. I appreciate you, Brian, and I appreciate all of you for your time, energy, and attention. Let's go.